Talk to me. That was a great one. You didn't hear what I got to call. You got to call. I didn't have to read it. Because she took one from the same one.
So she took Zoe and then you said that.
She didn't end up liking readers. One of our competition, that's what it is. And that's what's not, it doesn't, it didn't get it. Your son is so
He's been house sitting for them, so he's not right now, so.
how do we find out the story?
It was there.
I looked at her and I went, see, I think, and she's a judge. They now moved from Michigan, I told them Michigan. No, they were in Michigan, right? And then they now moved to the country. Judge I'm taking a shower. Oh, I did so many things. I had a little RV that had everything in it. So, travel around and show
All right, I'd like to call this meeting to order for the Village of Campton Hills. It's January 23rd, 2024. It's 7:02. Roll call, please.
Trustee Bogner?
Here.
Trustee Burson?
Here.
Trustee McKelvey?
Here.
Trustee Millette?
Present.
Trustee Morgan?
Here.
Trustee Muncy?
Present.
President Warnicki?
Present. And please rise for the pledge. And Mike?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Number 4, we'll move on to public comments.
Teresa? Trees?
Yeah.
Sorry. You want me to stand?
And the podium is right there.
Oh, there we go.
Good evening.
My name is Therese Hoffensberger, and I would like to be considered to fill the open position for Commissioner on the Plan Commission Zoning Board of Appeals. I submitted an application to serve on the committee on the village website earlier today. I have a BA in Business Administration with a concentration in Finance from the University of St. Thomas. I also have a JD from DePaul College of Law. I worked as a reinsurance broker after graduating from college. After law school, I specialized in reinsurance law and issues involving Lloyd's of London. I left the practice of law after adopting my third child from China in 2004. Since then, I have served in volunteer and leadership roles for several nonprofit organizations, including Mending Fences, Farm Therapy, and LE Gymnastics Boosters, Inc., where I served as president. I have experience setting up nonprofit organizations and drafting bylaws and other organizing documents. My husband and I built our house in the woodlands of LaFox Woods in 1998 and have lived in that house for over 25 years. We are grateful to have found this beautiful community to live in and raise our family. We have 3 children, 2 are still in college, and 1 is an elementary teacher in Kentucky. We have 1 dog, a Siberian Husky. I have wanted to get involved somehow with the village for several years now, but have been waiting for the right opportunity. I recently learned from my neighbor Peggy Seehafer that there is an open position on the Planning Commission, the Zoning Board of Appeals. I have a lot of volunteer experience, and my legal background helps me understand complex issues presented by zoning regulations. I believe I would add value and be an asset to this committee. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much. I have a copy of my comments that I will give to Barb, and I have several copies, so if anyone else wants one, they're welcome to get it from Barb.
Thank you.
Good evening. Good to be here again after a few months. Good to see everybody, nice desks. I'm here to support the appointment of my wife Harley to the, so I'm very emotional, my wife Harley to the Plan Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals. Not because she's my wife, or that today is our anniversary. I know, thank you. That'd be way too cheesy even for me. But because she's knowledgeable and capable. Most people know Harley by now. If you don't, you should. Most people know Harley for her communication skills and persistence. And of course her loud mouth. She calls a spade, she ruffles feathers, but always to get to the truth and to share with others. What is less known about Harley is her devotion to any cause she sets her mind to. She's very determined. She was born an activist, and she's been an activist for most of her life, basically, just like her mom. And that's, sorry, that's why my voice is cracking, because today is actually Harley's mom's, it's the anniversary of Harley's mom's passing. And we reclaimed the day 7 years ago when we decided to get married on this day, because we wanted to put a happy spin on that day. And I think it would be a great bonus to have her appointed to this very important position today. So she spends hours every week. I mean, you should see at home what she does. She sits there with her phone and research things. She collects information, analyzes it. She's like a computer. Like when it gets into her head, it stays there and it's organized and everything. It's quite amazing, actually. So it's about 3 years deep into this subject of interest, our latest subject of interest, which is zoning and planning, basically. And so she's probably reached a level of expert at this time, because she's invested so much time and efforts into it. And for this reason alone, I think she should be appointed tonight. And to end with a reminder, because it's been mentioned before, a commissioner cannot vote on their own variance or special use request. There's no conflict of interest possible. if we ever apply for something, she would have to abstain herself from voting. And again, Holly doesn't do things for herself, she does it for others. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Raph. We received several written comments regarding action item 7C, which is the appointment of Holly. They'll be included in the minutes for everybody to read. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda. Anything to remove from the consent agenda?
Yeah, let's remove the minutes.
The minutes? Okay. December, 19th.
Yes, so the new 5C, the one that's 24-15.
Anything else? Okay, motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of 5A, B, and C.
So moved, Muncy.
Moved by Muncy,
Second.
second by McKelvey. Roll call.
Trustee Muncy.
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey.
Aye.
Trustee Bogner.
Aye.
Trustee Burson.
Aye.
Trustee Millette.
Aye.
Trustee Morgan.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. We'll move on to 5A and B.
Yeah, actually, it was just, yeah, on the minutes, it was just more clarification, nothing radical. Under my comments, as we were talking about the dais at the last meeting, it says estimate the purchase was roughly $28,000. What I had said was, we looked at used ones, and they were like $20,000 to $28,000. And then I also said this was under budget, and the materials only cost around $2,000. So you could have just read this like we spent $28,000 on this, and that's not the case. So I just wanted clarity on that. That's all.
Okay, let's see, motion to approve the change.
Yeah.
Moved by McKelvey, second by,
I'll second.
second by, Janet. Okay, roll call please.
Trustee McKelvey.
Aye.
Trustee Burson.
Aye.
Trustee Bogner.
Aye.
Trustee Millette.
Aye.
Trustee Morgan.
Aye.
Trustee Muncy.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Let's see, we have 5C, that was Muncy.
Yeah, thanks, President Winicky. This is really just a simple typo, if you will. It's in, not the warrants themselves, but the warrant list that is page 8 of our packet. It's page 2 of the warrant, number 24-15. And it's the second from the bottom item, 240104VCH. Both the VCH and the one subsequent to it, VCH1, say that they're for fuel. As we know in the system from Canton Township Highway, the VCH is, those are the invoices for labor and materials, that sort of thing. The VCH1 is for fuel. They didn't spend $1,000 on fuel. It's just the VCH needs to have the word fuel removed from it, just so there's no confusion at a later date thinking that we spent $1,000 on fuel, which obviously we didn't. That's all, just a clerical correction.
All right, thank you.
With that change, I move to approve the warrants 24-15 with that slight change.
And second by, okay, discussion, go ahead.
I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to the ComEd invoice for Unit A next door for $426. I believe this is for 2 months of service, not one. But even so, at over $200 a month for electric for the suite next door, that is the Village of Campton Hills obligation. I'm not sure how that ever happened. I've never seen a commercial lease that includes utilities. And I'm not sure how it is that the Village of Campton Hills previously, in the prior administration, managed to grant a lease to Metro West in that space for a pretty bargain rate, I think, to begin with, at $850 a month, of which we are spending over $200 a month currently for electric. It also appears, unlike any other commercial lease I've ever seen, that termination for convenience is not even contemplated in this lease. So I'm not sure quite how the prior administration got us into this, but we are saddled with a 5-year lease under, it seems like highly unfavorable terms. And if I'm not mistaken, we spoke about this a few moments ago, Attorney Forte, doesn't appear that the village has any recourse in this matter, is that correct?
Unless the lease was reopened for another matter, it doesn't appear that there's just a one-sided way for the village to get out in a matter of convenience like you. But we can look into it.
Okay, so obviously we'll pay the electric bill.
Thank you, trustee Burson. Trustee Millette?
Are they waiving our membership fees?
No,
Do we know? We're still paying membership fees, good.
I'm certain, yeah. Thank you.
Just a quick question.
A second, yeah.
Well,
I think
you should go back and get
you did. You seconded 5B as well, Lindsay's?
Well, you should. Oh, that's.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
I will second.
Okay, and then roll call. Okay.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Bogner?
Aye.
Trustee McDelby?
Aye.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Okay. We need a motion on 5B as well. That was Jim that pulled that. So, Jim, you want to move that, 5B as well?
5B, yes.
Okay, and then a second?
Second, Muncy.
Second, Muncy, and roll call. Yeah.
Trustee McDelby? Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Bogner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Okay, motion passes. On the staff reports, we don't have a treasurer's report. We'll move to 6B and interim chief.
Just a quick comment on that.
Yes.
I know we did get kind of a summary a few hours ago from the treasurer, not getting a report from him tonight. In case some members would want to ask some questions, I would ask that we move it to the next meeting,
Okay.
that he could attend and present.
Okay,
All right?
all right. I need a second for that.
I'll second.
No. You don't need one. All right, Chief, interim chief James Levan.
All right, because the meetings were moved around, I'm gonna try to make this fast, I promise. Because the meetings were moved around a little, I'm actually combining 2 months into this one, so you're actually getting November and December here. So the activity for November, 139 calls for service, 14 accidents, 87 citations, 2 arrests. Month of December, 121 calls for service, 14 accidents, 25 citations. Month of December, we did a lot, obviously, with the holidays, including Holiday in the Hills, which was a huge success, thanks to the Community Relation Committee. Thank you to everyone for all their hard work, because every year it's amazing. It got much better this year. They did a lot, including putting the stuff up, taking the stuff down. We helped 4 families this year that were in a little bit of need, toys, clothes, and gift cards. Gotta thank residents, because the residents came forward, donated a lot of the stuff, including gift cards. Between the drop box here and at Old Town Pub, there was over 600 toys collected for Toys for Tots. We hosted a pancake breakfast fundraiser for CERT on December 23. That included Santa Claus, which was a huge success. Thanks to the area businesses that donated to the silent auction, including Old Town, Portofino, and Taylor Street. And that was followed by our yearly Christmas parade, which was well received, as it always is. In your package, you have KingCom, which is our dispatch service provider's 5-year call trends. The department was up 329 calls for service over last year, which isn't surprising. I mean, that's pretty much community-wide, not just here. It keeps going up. You also have the King County Animal Control packet in there for 2023. There was only 4, I want to point this out, because every time we use animal control, they charge the village. So there was only 4 calls in 2023. All 4 of those calls were for sick raccoons, which we really don't have a choice. It's a health and safety thing. We have to use them. But big kudos to the residents, because we get a bunch of missing dogs. Most communities, the police go out, they grab them, they call animal control, the village is charged for it. Here, our community is really good. A lot of animal lovers, they'll hold on to the dogs, they'll put it on social media, and typically the owners are reunited. We also have a new scanner last year that helps us obviously ID the pets and get them back to their owners. So it's pretty impressive when you look at the packet with other agencies, how many times they use animal control. We don't use them often unless we have to for safety and health reasons. A couple weeks ago, I requested the assistance of the CERT team during the snowstorm. They help patrol for disabled vehicles, assisted with traffic control, and answer the phones at the station. Thanks to CERT. Remember, CERT's all volunteers. They don't charge the village, so that's a huge cost savings to the village. Police department just hired a new civilian property evidence custodian. Her name is Christina Jedling. She couldn't be here, but I'm extremely thankful that she took this position. So she's part-time, probably only gonna work maybe about 6 hours a week. She has previous law enforcement and evidence experience, including Elk Grove Village and Roselle. She's very experienced, she's highly recommended, and this is what we needed for our department. This takes away that process from the officers here to have a civilian evidence property custodian, which is what all agencies are trying to go to right now. So I'm thankful that she took it. Completed a complete audit and inventory of all our citation books. That's completely done, it's revamped, and it's good to go. So if there was ever an audit for that, that's taken care of. And then just one quick reminder to the residents, you saw this morning how much ice we have out there. The winter snow/ice winter event is in effect until April 1st. You park on the street, you get a citation for doing it. The plows have to be able to get through there. This morning's a perfect example. Roads were closed down because it was so dangerous. We had cars piled in ditches. Could you imagine a big snow plow having to get down a tiny street to dump salt? That's why it's so important to get the cars off the streets. And I believe that is it.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
All right, moving on to, we don't have a report for building and zoning. However, the zoning commission, the new zoning interim, short-term zoning commission meets tomorrow evening at 6:30. If anybody would like to attend that meeting. We'll move to action items, 7A 2024 roadway program review and direction, and that'd be Scott.
Good evening. Just like to mention, I also have John Boveri, the chairman of the Public Works Committee, here to help with any questions. Typically, Ray Weber from the Highway District would be here as well, but I did talk with him earlier today. Since he was up at 3 in the morning salting, he had a pretty good reason for not being here. So, what I'm here to talk with you about is the 2024 road program. I've got the information in your packet, and we're looking for some specific direction on specific things associated with this project. One reason is commitment of how much funding is set aside for this project. Since the amount of funding is less than necessary to do the entire project, there's been recommendations as to which of the roadways are the worst of the worst streets. Looking for your concurrence with those or recommendations of others. Direction regarding the level of improvement. Again, due to the funding shortfall necessary to do everything. Improvements right now to stretch those dollars would be at the lowest level, similar to what the village has done in the past as far as the mill, nominal, level minor resurfacing. And then, even so, the groups that are recommended as the worst of the worst, it looks like they're going to cost more than what's available for funding. So we have listed in here, that's all subject, of course, to engineer's estimate, actual bids when they come in. But just want to make you aware that if the bids come in high, we would have to look at taking some streets out of the program. So kind of advanced knowledge of if the bids come in at that level, in what order would we take streets away from the program? And typically what happens is you would actually, should that happen, you would actually award the entire bid contract, then afterwards issue a change order deleting certain roadways to get the project down to the available amount of money. There's a couple pages of information in here about how village we got to this point, and I'd be happy to address any questions while we're in discussion, so that we can get clear direction and keep moving forward.
Okay, we'll start with trustee Trustee Millette?
This is more for us internally, or for Administrator Rooney. The 600 is what? What is our determination on that's all that's available, or is there more available?
We annually have 552,000 for NFT. And there's monies that have not been expended in this year's budget and probably won't be, so there'd probably be about another 125,000. And we could, with some other budget changes, variances, have slightly more than that, so I told Scott to plan for 650. Just working with Tim Phillips, with keeping in mind that you wanna maintain your healthy fund balance policy that you do have for 25% of cost reserve. So unless you vote to not follow that policy to get more money, we're safely estimating 650. By the time the bid comes in April, could there be a variance found that push it higher? But it isn't at that 1,000,001 that some people discussed at the finance committee, saying that we do have 1,000,001 this year. We had 1,000,001 last year, 1,000,002, because you didn't do a program the year before. And that's basically, if you do 650 times 2, that's where you got that number.
Trustee Person, go ahead.
Over time, to what extent has the village supplemented the MFT money from the general fund?
It appears, looking back and talking to Tim, and what we can discern from conversations matches what we see on the Excel, is that any excess money that's not been expended in a previous budget has been the policy of the board to push it toward the majority of that to the roads. There's not been, let's buy a new X in some department or another squad car. It's basically been reserved for the roads. After the fund balance, yes.
And so given that, do you have any type of an estimate as to what the village might be safely able to, and I know we haven't done
Well,
budget for 2024.
and that's what Tim and I are recommending, 650 is 553 that you get as reserved for it. And
So you're
another
feeling like
100
maybe another 100,000?
Yes, safely. It could be more, but
But you can't assure it.
I don't want it, there's the detail with the bidder. We don't want to say 750, and then we have 6.25, because then it could invalidate all our bids. So if we do 650 and have the conservative engineering estimate, we can add a road easier and delete 1 or 2 without invalidating our whole bid packet. So we're trying to be conscious of what the bidders will react if we change that number too much.
And this is generally dramatically smaller than what our engineers recommended, for a lot of funding.
I think that you do get a better bang for your dollar if you have $1 million worth of work than if you have 650. I wish I could find another $300,000, but I just don't see it.
Thank you.
Question for Scott?
Real quick, I think Scott was gonna respond.
Yeah, just to clarify something, kind of a rule of thumb is if your bids are within 10% over, and you take out a street or two, and that 10%, something like that's really not gonna ruffle the feathers of the bidding community. You open bids for 1.5 million, and you cut it down to 600, you just threw your bids up and started over, because it's a totally different project. That's why we're trying to bring it down to the groups 4 and 5, to closer to that 651, to, keep the good faith of the bidding community. If they're putting time in to bid for it, they expect a project pretty close to that size.
Okay, Trustee Muncy?
Yeah, I just wanted to confirm that, option 1 for 4 and 5, as you've outlined it, appears to be, slightly over the 650, but
within range. What I heard you say earlier was you were recommending that we bid 4 and 5 in their entirety with option 1. And then we hope, as Administrator Rooney said, that it's not just $650, that hopefully as we get those bids back, it's gonna be down the road, we'll know more about our budget. Hopefully there's more that we've saved that we can add to the program, and we get close to maybe the whole program or a little less. Is that what I'm hearing, that you're recommending, that's what I read, what I heard today, so I can confirm, you're recommending we don't pull anything down, we do groups 4 and 5 for option 1?
Correct. Our current estimate is about 790 for all of those roadways. As we refine estimate numbers, as we look at bid prices from this year and such, we may tweak that a little bit. Which is, yes, it's a little bit over the 650. It's a number that I think as we refine, we might come down a little bit from the 790. I think we're close enough to do it. But what I wanted you to be aware of is if it comes in over what you have funding, which streets are coming off first?
That was my question, one of my questions.
All right, go ahead.
Sorry. I did want to clarify that you wanted guidance from us in terms of the worst, what are the least worst, I guess, that we would be willing to pass on if the funding was not adequate.
The streets listed in here, first to come off would be Aberdeen. Or excuse me.
Clydesdale, I think
it
it was too.
Clydesdale. After that would be Aberdeen. And hopefully we don't have to go that far. Part of the reason for them is they're a little bit better than, or not quite as bad as Colonel Bennett. What you don't want to do is start taking streets off the list within a neighborhood that you're completing. And in the Ridgeline Cranston area, you are completing everything in there. So you don't want to take something out of a neighborhood that you then have to go back in and drive over it with equipment in a few years to finish something up. So these isolated streets are a little less worse condition and a little isolated. So that's the reason for those two.
Okay, Trustee McKelvey.
I have one more question.
Oh, one more question, go ahead.
Well, maybe it's not the right time, but I just was curious because, Commissioner Barberi was kind enough to come, and I wondered if you wanted to weigh in on it.
The one thing I'm gonna ask is, the more money we can get, you talk about MFT money, and it's great, but if you look at the number of miles that are in this village, and the number of miles with the $600,000, I was talking to Scott, you get maybe 2 miles, roughly 2% if you're lucky, of the total roads. Most roads here, when they're paved, and the type of paving we're doing is a Band-Aid. We just a grind and a quick overlay. They're good for 20 years at best. But if you're only doing 2% of the total roads in the village, it's gonna be 30, 40, 50 years before you get back to another road. And MFT money is great for the village, but we need to look at how we can implement a program, first of all, to get caught up to a point that it's manageable. In years past, they were doing 2 miles a year and they were never caught up. The roads were in bad condition. We wanted to implement, the committee had discussed for several years about this, implementing a couple of years of good funding that we can get the roads to a manageable state, and we can implement maintenance. Last year we did like around I think it was $98,000 we did what was Reclamite. I think it's a great product, what I've seen so far. It's a maintenance program that can give us longevity, but we need to look at enhancing our funding mechanism to get resources, to get our roads to a manageable state. Because if we don't do it now, sooner or later, we will never be able to get caught up. And as for the last year spending the $1.2 million, and we didn't spend money the prior year, that was intentional. Because in years past, we would never know when we have funding coming. It was a big question mark, and we wouldn't get the answer from the village board until we were at the tail end of bidding. So now we want to be first out of the blocks running bidding, because it's been proven you get better pricing if you come the first of the year. So we didn't do anything that year, saved all that money, and rolled it into the next year, so that's why we made it to the $1.2 million. And we were able to do a large volume of paving with a contractor and get a good pricing. Ideally, I would love to see some way that the village could find some funding mechanism so we could get 3 to 5 years of a lot of roads paved, get the village overall in a better position to manage the roads. That's ideally what we would like to see as a committee. We've talked about this for many years, and it always comes back to funding.
It does, right? I mean, the board has talked about it as well. And as you know, we're highly constrained. So at some level, we're faced with either accepting, this reduced maintenance schedule, right? Or trying to find a funding source that isn't there. The short, version of that is local taxes that people don't want, right? Or trying to find some creative place in between, which hasn't been located yet.
What I would say is to anybody, first of all, it takes money to run a local government. And second of all, letting roads deteriorate or police departments be hamstringed by a small budget. Or in the past, we've seen the fire department here had financial problems and we'd have brownouts at stations. That impacts the community and the value of their house.
It does.
I think homeowners have to realize that if you want to live in a strong, vibrant community, you have to pay for certain services and certain things to get done to maintain your community. Roads are important, police protection is important, fire protection is important. Those all impact the value of your house and everybody's house here.
Very well said, thank you.
Thank you, John. Trustee Kelby?
Yeah, Administrator Rooney, I assume what you're saying is the extra 100,000 or whatever would come from a variance, a positive variance somewhere else.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Across the
entire budget. Yeah. The other thing, and again, we're putting Band-Aids on stuff. That's what we're doing. We're just trying to, get a little boy and put his finger in a little hole in the dike, hoping that, and we just can't get to it all. One thing I would, two comments. Number one is we do have a contingency fund that, to the best of my knowledge, I don't think we've touched every year. I think we usually put 100,000, is it, in the contingency fund? I think it is. I think we've even done it higher. So there's 100,000. I'm not suggesting that you necessarily use that, but I would give the following challenge to the Public Works Committee and also to you, Administrator Rooney, to have a joint meeting with the Finance Committee. And everybody put their heads together and bring you in on the meeting to say, here's the roads. Here are all the worst roads. And have a real roll up the sleeves. What's the best we can do? What ideas do we have out there that we could somehow maybe get to a place that we can maybe not cure everything, but put us on a better path? Because right now we're trying to empty a flooded basement with a tablespoon.
And I think the Public Works Committee did have a recommendation that the two public referendums of between 10 to 15 million and separated by 5-6 years to get physically caught up.
Yeah, has that been discussed with the Finance Committee?
I tried to bring it up last meeting and it wasn't well received. It was debated, but we're going to do it again.
Yeah, but that's the challenge, right? Because I called up the Finance Committee today, one of the members, and said, what are you guys doing? You guys are bankers, you guys are beanies, you guys know the budget, you push back on the budget. So roll up your sleeves and help this board come up with some solutions. So maybe there's not one solution, maybe there's multiple doors we got to open. That's the challenge I would leave, because I think we got the man and lady power to get it done.
Trustee Muncy?
I think at this point, I'll just make the motion, and I guess we'll discuss it, but I move to accept the recommendation of Scott Marquardt of HR Green for option 1 for paving for groups 4 and 5, to put that out to bid with the understanding that Clydesdale Court and Aberdeen Lane would be the first we would consider, if in fact the funding is not available.
I'll second it.
Who's second? Second by McKelvey. Okay. Roll call. Oh, I'm sorry, more discussion. Mike?
Thank you, Madam President. I was going somewhere in a similar vein. I think it's program review and direction, so we need direction, and we are at the tail end of January, and we want to get into the proper bidding environment. So what you said, Trustee McKelvey, I agree, but I think I'm comfortable at this point, knowing that we are maybe over authorizing. If it comes in at $790, we are maybe over authorizing, and that's maybe where we need to find that 100,000. But we won't know that until we see the bids. So at this point, we're not obligated to act on any of the bids. Ever. So I'm okay giving them direction to get out ahead of this, and then in the meantime, you know, if we all concur, that seems like a good idea. Is maybe this year we don't do the $100 for contingency because the roads are a contingency right now.
Exactly. I mean, if it's every year, we didn't use the contingency. You know, we always said if a tornado or something comes, but bottom line is use the 100,000.
For me, that's my opinion.
All right, any other? And Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, so I've been talking to Scott, and I also talked to the engineer over in Streeter, Illinois. It's a very similar community to ours, roughly 12,000 people, similar issues with road work. I was just doing some general research on what alternatives are out there to what we're doing right now. And there's a lot of interesting processes that aren't on here that we've discussed, Scott. But one that is very similar to the grind and the mill and repave process that we're proposing is the cold-in-place recycling, where if you're not familiar with that, the company comes out, they grind off the asphalt, at the same time they reapply the asphalt so it's all recycled, and then they come back through and do a top coat. So they grind 3 inches, reinstall it, come back in and do another inch. So it's actually more new asphalt and more grind than what we're doing on this plan. From the statistics that are out there and the folks in Streeter, they confirmed that they were able to save 20–25% on the road work costs. The negatives on this and sort of the catch is it has to be applied on the right road. So these vehicles are very heavy, it's an extra long convoy of equipment, so the base has to be good. The road has to be fairly straight, can't have low canopy trees, so there's some boxes that have to be checked. But I think before we start talking about referendums and taxes, I think we really need to look and at least offer some of our roadways to contractors to bid on for some of these, the cold-in-place recycling. I mean, at the end of the day, the contractor's not gonna take the job if the product's gonna fail. I mean, they're gonna come out, look at the road, they're either gonna take the bid or they're not. The folks out in Streeter said they started using the cold-in-place recycling 10–11 years ago, and the roads have aged perfectly. I mean, he had nothing but great things to say about it. So I think before we send everything out, I think that we should allocate some portion of our road work budget to going out to bid for this cold-in-place recycling, if it can be done. At least we could say we ruled out all of these more practical or economical alternatives, and we put our best foot forward, and we can't get it done.
Well, go ahead, Scott. And then we'll go to Mike.
If I could respond to that, and I've talked to the gentleman in Streeter also. There are differences in what you end up with in the final product, and on the right road with the right base, it is a viable alternative. There's no question about it. They did have some roads that had more base underneath it. Once they did this product, and if you are milling and cold applying a asphalt emulsion in that milled mix, you are getting a asphalt product that is better than what you had, but it is not as good strength per inch as a hot mix, hot applied asphalt. What they also were doing there is, they were not putting a layer of binder or surface over the roadway. They were doing a thin half-inch sand seal, kind of like a slurry seal, on top of it. So it's a combination of, they had a little more base to work with, plus this to be added onto, but you do end up with a different surface product. If you do then go in and add a layer of hot mix asphalt on top of it, now you're getting a better roadway, but you're, increasing the cost of it. I am trying to arrange with a site visit with a local contractor that does this type of work to get his input. Are some of these alternative products viable on some of the roadways? And I'll report back on that. But everything I've heard so far is on some of the roadways that we're looking at this year, these products are not quite the right product to use. You're exactly right. Roadway work is the right treatment on the right road at the right time. So we're always looking for options like that. I just don't think that these roadways that are the worst of the worst are the right ones for those other types of options, but we're continuing to look.
And when you say that, you're basing that on the knowledge of the subsurface, the base.
Correct. Also, this is something I'm not 100% sure of, but some of these alternative methods may or may not, I haven't confirmed, be MFT eligible. So that's something else that has to be addressed.
Okay, Trustee Millette?
Thank you, President Woznicki. And Trustee Boatner and I had a conversation along the same lines. We need to consider, this would be a third level of focus. We would look at, they'd have to be streets that are relatively straight. They'd have to be streets, as Nick said, with, not major tree conflicts or trees we're willing to elevate up to 16 feet or something, depends on what the pavement train needs to clear underneath it. So there's a limited number of even possibles that we could apply it to. So I think what Scott said is if we have a contractor that could take a look and tell us, hey, don't even consider it on streets A, B, and C, it's a maybe on streets E, F, and maybe you could do it on street H, and then have them get us a number, because we need to know what the number would be. And we would need to compare that number to what funding's available, and then we'd have to justify with everybody that it's not going to get us out of the hole of the red streets, but nothing's going to get us out of the hole of the red streets other than 20 million dropping into this room right now, which isn't happening. But it's probably going to be on a low green or yellowish road that then will not degrade as fast. So that's how we have to kind of make the calls, and especially if it's a collector road where it comes out of a couple subdivisions, and you can say there's a great benefit on this, that we, for this time, okay, we could do this, and then 15 years, we can treat it again like a new road for 15 years, even though it's not exactly a new road. Maybe that we can do that. So we need to get a number and get it back to Public Works to see if they can fit it into the program as we have now as a amped up preventative maintenance type of treatment, as opposed to a resurfacing, which again, that's resurfacing, to remind everybody, resurfacing is actually a maintenance function. Rebuilding the road is the thing. Tearing it out back to dirt and building it up with a stone base and a drainage layer and the right amount of asphalt, that's new construction. And we did that on a couple of, Anderson was sort of that. We did an in-place treatment on Anderson too. So that we've kind of sort of done this with a similar technique, but then in Anderson's a dead straight shot. And we had extra outside funding because that's the one that we applied for the federal match with the townships. We got points for that. So I think it's something that's worth looking into, absolutely, because we need to not leave anything on the table that might work as, right technique, right place, right time.
John,
And the biggest unknown, you know, there's a lot of different applications out there. As a committee, we've looked at a lot of different things and discussed a lot of things. But the biggest unknown is the base underneath these roads. Anderson Road, and a good example was last year, or was it last year or 2 years ago, Scott brought in the core samples. We didn't want to, Campton Hills, excuse me, you're right. And you see what these bases are, and that's only one road, and I am sure a large majority of the roads in this community are the same way. They came out here in the 70s and said, oh, let's pave the road, and the farm mentality was just throw a little asphalt on top of the gravel. The gravel's been there for years. Well, the roads were never properly constructed, essentially. We've got a lot of roads like that. And so when we start projects and we say we're gonna save 25% and just do this grind in place, you don't know what you hit. I wish Ray was here today from the highway department. He can tell you stories like on Campton Hills Road, there's a section there that they have 18 inches of asphalt. Because they just kept putting asphalt on top of it because the base was so bad. They didn't have the money to dig up, excavate out, and put a proper base. So subsequent years of just laying asphalt. And that's all we've been doing. So when we do a lot of these new techniques and processes, we have to really start to look at the foundation you're putting it on, and that's when you start to get really expensive.
Thank you, and to remind some of the board members, if you had or haven't seen those, I mean, some of those cores I actually had to carry in here in a baggie. Because they were reduced to black gravel, almost. So you had some asphalt that was in very poor condition.
Trustee Bowden?
Yeah, my last comment was, you know, we're probably getting to the point on a lot of these roads where they're, you know, due for scheduled reclamite or scheduled crack sealing or scheduled maintenance. And if I remember the way I remember the last round of reclamite, it was kind of the leftovers. It was kind of an afterthought after roadwork season. And I was just concerned looking at anything that you own, maintaining it outside of getting out and replacing and repaving all of these red roads. Are we incorporating into the budget up front the maintenance of all these newer roads that we're investing in? It would just be a shame to continue doing this and then we're not taking care of everything that we've already invested in.
And Trustee Bodner does recall that correctly. While it had been discussed, last year, there was not a separate line item set aside for reclamite, for rejuvenation. Because the roadway project did come in a bit under budget, we brought that forward and did approximately 6 miles of roadways for just under $100,000. I could already tell you what next year's rejuvenation project should be. It's the other roadways that we've resurfaced recently. That's the cycle. But it is something that would have to be budgeted. Again, it does require a dedicated funding source to be set aside for that. So again, we want to do it. The highway district is fully in support of doing projects like that. We just need the funds in order to do so.
Right. Go ahead, Nick.
I feel like it should be included in the initial bid and the proposal. I mean, even if we end up doing less miles of new road, my opinion is that should be at least something where we can look at the whole bid and then also be able to compare side by side. Here's what the bid for the maintenance is. At least we can compare those two numbers and make a decision on what we want to do up front. And then I had another question on the budget report. It's a capital fund expenditure, and I believe it was from ARPA funds, the village hall improvements. I just want to confirm that is not money that would be available going forward.
Yeah,
That's ARPA, right?
ARPA, you can
Okay.
do almost anything except asphalt. And that's because federally they passed the infrastructure bill and they specifically said no community, no political entity that's been receiving of these funds can spend it on anything that's asphalt or a bridge because they have this other big federal pot of money. There's things like in Evanston, they're using things that are just, they're not infrastructure at all, they're reparations, they're.
Well, city of Chicago.
And the city of Chicago, so they can do vastly wide open ideas for your funds with APRA, but asphalt and bridges are the only thing excluded.
I thought that was our, I just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Okay, Trustee Muncy, go ahead.
Just trying to wrap this up, it's very clear that we have had a continuing problem with our funding for roads. The chairman from the Public Works Commission, John Spalberry, and from HR Green, Mark, where obviously continue to reiterate that we agree, we understand. We understand we need further funding for roads, and we're trying to do that. We also understand, and I agree with Trustee Bodner, that it would be nice to include that Reclamite, that maintenance program. We did discuss that, concur with Mr. Markwart. We did discuss that in the past, that we would like to do that. However, we're having a heck of a time funding less than we thought we were gonna pay this year. So we're continuing this problem, and to go to earlier discussions, we're funding option one, which is the least inclusive, the least comprehensive of the options of paving these things, which is much less than what HR Green has said they would like to do, which is full depth reclamation on most of these. So we have a funding issue, I get it. But for this year, I think we're making a responsible decision to say we're going to fund groups 4 and 5 at option one, and we're going to do everything we can to find that funding, and we'll hope that the bids come in, in a positive fashion, that we're able to afford that, and we're hoping we'll be able to find the funding for it. And maybe even keep our fingers crossed, there's a little money left over, somehow, some way, we can do some other life with that. I think that's where we're at right now, but we do need to have further discussions, not now, but further discussions in the near future to determine how do we solve this issue bite by bite going forward in the future.
Trustee Millet, go ahead. Oh, Trustee Morgan?
My thought would be to push that to next budget, because we wouldn't be doing Reclamite until next budget year anyway. So we should, if we do have a joint public works finance meeting, something like that, it would be nice to have definitely the 2 buckets of money. Here's your preventive maintenance bucket, and then here's your resurfacing bucket, and then if we wanted to do a pilot project for some kind of in-place reclamite, or in-place reclamation project, that could be a third. And then you can assign, amounts to it, and then when we start talking through the budget, we decide if those are the appropriate amounts of our limited resources apply the way we want to apply.
Trustee Morgan, go ahead.
I agree with Trustee Muncy and with Trustee Millet. We're already 8 months into our fiscal year. So looking at the information that we were supplied by Tim, our treasurer, I think we need to get this bid going, so we can take advantage of the lower prices now, and throw something at it later when we figure out where we are in month 11, or even month 10. You should be able to forecast what you have left for the last 2 months, and move on.
And I think I heard Scott and John say they're gonna look at the study for the right method that Nick has spoken about for the right road, the right condition of that road, for that as an alternate, and that'll take us some time. We won't have that in the next month, but we will commit that we will study that and get back to the board with the road that could fit that program.
Correct.
Okay, are we ready to vote?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, roll call.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee McDowdy?
Aye.
Trustee Bodner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Good discussion. Go
Thank you
ahead.
very much.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
And John. Okay, moving on to 7B, motion to approve ordinance 24-01 and ordinance amending chapter 1 and chapter 5 of Title 4 of the Village Code of Hampton Hills, King County, Illinois, related to establishment of a liquor license, application fee, and supplemental video gaming liquor license fee. Accept the motion on this to move it forward.
So moved.
Okay, trustee Berson, second by trustee Boltner. Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none.
Trustee Berson,
Aye.
trustee Bodnar,
Aye.
trustee McDelby,
Aye.
trustee Millet,
Aye.
trustee Morgan,
Aye.
trustee Muncy.
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. 7C, motion to approve and consent of the village president's appointment of Holly Barron to the Plan Commission / ZBA for a term expiring January 23rd, 2029. I'll entertain a motion moved by
So
trustee,
moved.
trustee Janet, and second
Second.
by trustee Morgan. All right, discussion. Go ahead, Janet.
So initially, I would like to read a comment by a resident, then I have my own comment. So we received a comment from Nicole Burkhout, a resident in the village, who stated, I'm a resident of 13 years and I try my best to keep up to date on village happenings. I read minutes and as of last year, watched the village meetings on Facebook thanks to Holly Boron. A month ago, I was very happy to read that Holly was up for appointment to our planning commission. I was shocked to watch the meeting and see that her appointment was dropped because a couple of residents that seemed to be obsessed in bad-mouthing her and her husband. I watched for months on social media these guys spout off continuous lies about them, as well as other village issues. I'm also concerned that her appointment could be dropped due to this and misinformation spewed by these individuals. I believe in diversity of thought, and she brings a perspective and education that I believe should be included in discussions representing our zoning and village. I was very excited to read that her appointment is back up for a vote, and this is why I'm writing this comment. For a few years, she was one of the only residents to go out of their way to write detailed write-ups on social media to inform the public of what was going on in our village. I know I speak on behalf of many people when I say that she is exactly the type of person that I want to represent our residents. Her passion is something we should all have more of, and many people are extremely thankful for her diligent service to this community. Nicole Burkhout. I would also like to say, just in my own experience of working with Holly Boron, that I truly don't know anyone else in our village who is as familiar with zoning and planning and the issues involved with this. She's really dedicated years of her life to this. And we have, awesome professionals. Our village attorney, I don't think we could ask for better in a village attorney. But on any given day, on any given issue related to our zoning ordinance, I'm pretty sure that she would win, against Carmen. And so I think it's important to set aside some of the noise really that has erupted around this appointment. It's a very simple appointment. We have a very qualified person who is very dedicated to serving our village, and I think she's shown it in numerous ways. And the controversy mystifies me a bit, and it seems to involve things that don't have much of anything that I can see to do with village government. So, thank you.
Okay, trustee Morgan?
I also have something to read from a resident and then would like to make a comment. My name is Kim Weiss. I'm a resident of Campton Hills, and I also work in the village of Campton Hills. I'm very excited to see Holly Boren's appointment to the Planning Commission. Holly has been a huge asset to the village. Her attendance record to the village board meetings is proof that you need to see dedication she has for the village and the residents. Her appointment tonight shows me that the village is headed in the right direction, and they want to appoint people who are going to do the legwork on each and every issue. Einstein said it best: we cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. The village will be fortunate to have Holly as a new member as they move forward with making the village a better place for businesses and residents. Thank you, Kim Weiss. My comment is, before I became a trustee, and the reason I'm here is because of all the problems with the zoning and everything that was going on. And those of you who have been on the board for a while know that I also came to just about every meeting and spoke at just about every meeting. And Holly was either before me or after me. We spent an extensive amount of time looking at the zoning and what was going on and what the changes should be made. We offered plenty of suggestions. And some of the suggestions that I even offered came from Holly. I really think that she is an asset for our community to be able to help move the planning and zoning forward. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Morgan. Any, Nick? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'd like to make a comment as well. Now, Holly, I think you've been a fantastic deputy clerk. Thank you for that. I think very few individuals have demonstrated the commitment to all of our shared community values. I believe Holly's perspectives resonate deeply with the majority of our community members. And I believe Holly brings a very deep understanding of the concerns and the aspirations of our community. And for those reasons, I think that you'd be a great fit on our plan commission. But I'm also going to read one of these comments since they were emailed in. This is from Donna Brodalata. And Village Clerk, I'm unable to attend this meeting in person, so this is my public comment that I would like read during the village meeting. Thank you. I live in Foxfield Subdivision and have known Holly Bourne for approximately 2 years. It has come to my attention that she is up for an appointment tonight, so that is why I am writing. I feel that Holly would be a great asset to the village in any capacity. Holly's knowledgeable in many areas related to the village, and she does attend the meetings and keeps herself informed on what is happening in our community. She is friendly, brings people together, whether it is through a social event or someone in the neighborhood who is in need. She is always there to help out, always a great neighbor, and a true asset to our community. From Ms. Donna Brunelot. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Any other discussion? Mike, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. It's how do I phrase this? I've never voted against any presidential appointment, so you might be putting too much weight into it, whether I say yea or nay. Because it's the president's prerogative, and you sink or swim by your appointments, and our advice and consent is that when it's given. And the only concern I've had, as expressed with the president, and it's taken care of, is a longstanding policy is you not have 2 jobs. So I don't have any problem with Holly being on the Plan Commission. She resigned as deputy clerk, that's fine. And then, I would vote in favor of the appointment.
Thank you, trustee Millette. Ready to vote? All right. So roll call, please.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee McElvey?
Nay.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Nay.
Okay, motion passes. Congratulations. All right, moving on, we have 7D, ordinance number O-24-02, an ordinance amending the Campton Hills Village Code regarding charter transportation and unscheduled stops.
So moved.
Moved by trustee Muncy, second by trustee Morgan. Any discussion? Trustee Millette?
For the attorney, the home rule versus non-home rule discussion, could you flesh that out a little bit for us, please?
Sure. The regulations included in the ordinance, we believe conform with the village's home rule authority as garnered by the Illinois Municipal Code. We made it very clear to craft the language so that we stay within the 4 corners of the document, Constitution, and to focus on the village's police powers as to regulate transportation, not any other issues. So, any questions, I can answer them.
Follow?
Okay.
I think we're at low risk anyway, because when we talked about it at the Metro West Legislative Affairs Committee last Wednesday morning. Mayor Shelkey of Batavia had a conversation with Mayor Johnson of the city, and the city is actually asking for the folks to come to the city. So the incident with the Elburn, those folks went back on the train, and then Mayor Chapman of Elgin said they were unaware of, but they'd heard, through the grapevine that there were 3 buses that dropped at the Metro train station there in the city, with the exception of maybe, I think he said there were maybe 4 that were going to stay with family or something like that. So it's okay for whenever on the books. I don't think it's a big risk, but it does seem to be a concern to folks. So if you're saying that you think it's defensible, should it ever get challenged again, I don't really think it's going to be, but you never know. I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Ready to vote? Okay, roll call.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee McKelvey?
Aye.
Trustee Millette?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Okay, 8A, I'm going to pull that from the agenda. We'll.
No, I think
Yes.
we can.
You want to discuss it? Okay. The SEMA ordinance, number 24-03, an ordinance amending the Campton Hills Village Code with regard to administrative procedures for assisting and determining claims under the Public Safety Employee Benefits Act. Carmen.
Thank you. So the village does actually have a policy that was passed via resolution back in 2022. We were unaware that was the case, but be that as it may, the policy was not codified in the village code as a resolution. And even as it was written, it did not include any changes to the village code. So the proposed ordinance that we have up for discussion today actually does codify the procedure within the village code, which we would recommend even if you didn't have a policy in place now. In addition, there's some language in the current policy that does not stand up to the current status of litigation of the legislation, particularly with regard to the level of medical benefits afforded to SEBA applicants. The law used to be that you were afforded the most basic health insurance plan. I think at the time it may still be, was HSA for the village. Right now, just very recently, in the last few months, the legislature said that the applicant can obtain any health insurance plan available to any current employee of the village, or at least to their department. So that's one of the biggest changes. There are a few other procedural changes in the ordinance that we've prepared. It's pretty standard language that is used by a number of communities. Village manager or administrator would have the authority to review any claims, but more commonly a hearing officer is appointed, and that hearing officer, as you'll note in the ordinance, is attorney who's sworn in the state of Illinois for a certain number of years. Typically, there's a list of people who are qualified to perform the services and do them for a number of communities. So, if anyone would like to see any changes or have any questions about it, I can prepare those. Otherwise, we'll put it on the next agenda for approval. And it will repeal the prior policy, so that there's no confusion as to the conflict.
Any questions for Carmen?
I just say we do need this because we have an applicant and like Phillips and Rooney can't move forward with it without a codified ordinance authorizing us to do it. And we're bound to do it by state law.
That's right.
Okay, thank you. We're moving on to 8B, social media policy.
Oh, we need it.
Do you want?
We're just moving forward.
I thought next. Social media policy. Okay, we'll just move on then, I guess. Yeah.
Social media.
Okay. Who's covering social media?
I have a comment on it.
Yeah.
Start there.
Comment on it, yeah.
I think that the December 5th memo to the board and Attorney Forte from Village Clerk Johnson, Deputy Clerk Warren, puts it quite well, that, at this point, what's being suggested, if I understand it correctly, is that the village board in our next meeting, let's say, vote to approve the social media policy, which will be approve the use of a official village YouTube channel, which we already have access to. We just need to make it official by voting on it. And then C, the past meetings would then be posted there. Current meetings and future meetings would be live streamed there as soon as we have 50 followers on that count. They're suggesting that we allow commenting. I think that's up to the president whether to suggest we do or do not, as well as the attorney concerning commenting. At this point, I'm okay either way. I think we should just move forward with the YouTube channel so people can watch these meetings live and then have them archived. That's the last thing I want to say on the archiving. I know, as is stated here, some municipalities are relying on the social media platform to do that. They don't do that. I think we need to pay an archiving service or find means that we can completely prove that we are following state statute and archiving all these things correctly. It's my understanding from my past research just a few years ago, it's really not that expensive to do, a couple $1,000, free, whatever. I think we should look into it and determine if that's what we want to do. But I'm okay with the suggestion. Start with YouTube. Let's get our feet wet and see where we go from there.
And Trustee Muncie's great point with the archiving service. We can include language in the policy that the village will utilize best practices or comply with the Local Records Act in archiving this. It's prior recording. Something very general that gives us the latitude, gives the village the latitude to see that out.
Go ahead. Trustee Burson.
I would like to add that we've had a variety of discussions involving Trustee Muncie, Administrator Rooney, Clerk Johnson, and others involving the camera situation and how these meetings are recorded. And I don't think their final decisions have been made, and I think Administrator Rooney is going to make a staff recommendation the next meeting, but the general direction, as I understand it, is to move towards a permanently installed camera that is controlled by the village, such that the village is actually making these recordings and is fully in custody of them from the time they're recorded until they're pursued.
Thank you.
If I may add, not only that, but I think it would be a quality improvement for those viewing at home. You'd be able to see and hear much more clearly.
Absolutely, and Administrator Rooney has made a point of pretty well insisting, and I'm glad that we connect up the audio system that we have to that camera directly, so that residents are able to actually hear us talk.
Thank you, Trustee Burson. You want to add anything? No?
Yes, and under your budget, you have capital items, and one of the things that I think we'll be talking about next meeting as well is changing from the tornado siren, large expenditure, so that $5,000 to $8,000 for this camera would be being recommended, but it wouldn't break your budget because we wouldn't be spending that money in any way on that system. We have another capital alternative that would be put forth next meeting regarding something in the evidence room, police station, but I'll make sure it's budget neutral and doesn't, make us out of balance from what you put into the capital expenditures.
Just a small clarification. Are we doing 5,000 to 8,000 or 5,800 for this one?
I think it's well under 2,500, I think. Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? All right.
So then the direction will be for me to place the policy on the next agenda. I'll make minor tweaks based on the memo from the village clerk and the discussions today.
Okay. Thank you.
And the camera will be an adjacent expenditure that will have exact dollar amounts for it.
All right, moving along. Number 9, additional items from president, trustees, or attorney. Anybody have any comments? Oh, Trustee Millett.
Thank you again, President Rotlicki. The Interim Zoning Commission had its first meeting 13 days ago. And there have been updates already. There's conversation going on. I find myself in a bind because I was in the minority on the meeting night. And I am committed for the next 2 meetings to one of my historical groups, for which I am the secretary. Nobody seems to want to fill in for the secretary when you're looking for replacements. So I'd be looking for anybody that would like to spell me for the meeting tomorrow night and then the meeting 2 weeks thereafter, and then I will be back the 4th meeting or the 4th Wednesday in February.
Okay, trustee Person, you're volunteering.
I will take one.
Okay,
I will take both notes, I'll take one, so I'll see someone else.
It's tomorrow night and the 14th will be the next one, the
Yeah.
second Wednesday in February. So you can spend Valentine's Day with me.
Ash Wednesday.
oh, very good. Well, I'll attend the meeting tomorrow night as well, so I'll take minutes too. Mhm. Okay.
So you want me to do the 14th, or do you want me to do tomorrow?
I'll be here tomorrow, so you do the 14th.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you both.
okay. Any other comments or? Okay. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session and, it's for appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees or contractors, litigation that is filed and pending or is probable or imminent.
And you'll be adjourning in closed session, not to return, no action after closed session.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Moved by Morgan,
Second, Lindsay.
second by Lacy. Roll call.
Trustee Morgan?
Aye.
Trustee Muncy?
Aye.
Trustee Bogner?
Aye.
Trustee Person?
Aye.
Trustee McDelby?
Aye.
Trustee Miller?
Aye.